That's it. There's no excuse now. Last year, I claimed that the base model M4 MacBook Pro was the best base model in fact, I said it was the best MacBook Pro that Apple had ever made, and I stand by those words. It was, and we do have to talk about it in the past tense because we now have the M5 version. This is, I promise it is, I know it looks identical to the previous one, but this is the base model M5 MacBook Pro. It's wonderful. It's still the best MacBook Pro Apple has ever made. What you might be wondering is, how on earth do you review a new MacBook Pro that is basically the same as last year's version but with a new chip? Diminishing returns is a little bit unfair, but we have reached a point where iterative upgrades are happening rather than massive sweeping changes like we got with the Intel to M1 days. That was a big deal, still is. These days, going from the M4 to the M5 isn't as seismic as that. So what do we do with this review? What do I talk about? I think Apple is going after two specific crowds with this. I think they're going after people who are hanging on with, really clenched fists onto their original M1 MacBook Pro. You will not take this off me. This is mine. I know the battery's going and it's a little bit creaky here and there, but it's mine. You're not... Those people, but also the Intel crowd. Now, I don't have an Intel MacBook here, obviously, but if I did, they would be like, let's presume that's what this is. They'd be doing this. No. You're not having this. No. That is the challenge that Apple has, because I love how passionate people are about their old MacBooks, particularly MacBooks. People love holding on to them for years. However, it might be time to chuck that one in the bin, sell it, do whatever you need to do with it, and get one of these, because this, once again, is a masterpiece. Right, so if you go from the M4 to the M5 MacBook Pro, which you won't do, but I do recognise that a lot of people are now looking at the M4 version thinking, ooh, it's going to be cheaper now we've got the M5. Here's a few things that have changed between the two. So you get up to 45% faster graphics performance. You also get 3rd gen ray tracing and a new GPU architecture. That's quite a big deal, particularly if you're thinking about using your MacBook Pro for gaming. I know some people do. You also get up to 20% faster multi-threaded CPU performance and 30% higher memory bandwidth. So it's now 153 gigabytes per second versus the 122 gigabytes. What? It's just faster memory. Amazing. Faster SSD performance as well, up to 2 times faster for tasks like importing and exporting large files. It's got an improved 16-core neural engine for better AI. Obviously, it's 2025. And the same battery life, no price increase, which means in the UK, it's 1599 in the US as well. That gets you the 10-core CPU, 10-core GPU, 16 gigabytes of unified memory. The 8 gigabyte thing has gone forever. And 512 gigabytes of storage, which is enough for a lot of people. That's a big upgrade, isn't it? So if you are thinking between the M4 and the M5, unless you get a really good discount on the M4, I think the M5 makes sense based on those increases. 45% faster graphics. If you're using this to do graphical work, video editing, whatever it might be, that alone probably makes sense. However, we are here to talk about those M1 and Intel people, and there are some massive upgrades for you. I've always been an advocate of not paying over the odds for Apple's inbuilt storage. It makes way more sense to invest in a much better value external storage system, and they don't come much better than the brand new UGreen NAS DH2300. If you didn't know, NAS stands for Network Attached Storage, which is basically a way to store lots of data on multiple hard drives in one box that can also be shared wirelessly with multiple people. The NAS DH2300 is one of the most affordable options out there. With up to 60 terabytes of storage, you've got plenty of space for photos, videos, documents, basically anything you need. And the best part, it's a one-time payment of £389.99 for lifetime use with no extra fees or hidden costs. Plus, if you want to increase space later on, you just add another compatible hard drive. Setup is a breeze even if you've never used a NAS before. You can instantly access all your files from your phone, your laptop, or any device whenever you need them. And if you've got a family or a team at work, it's perfect for everyone to access at the same time without a hitch. The UGreen NAS DH2300 also doubles as a 4K media hub, so if you want to stream movies or photos, you'll get smooth, high-quality visuals without buffering. And with built-in encryption and RAID protection, your data stays safe no matter what. If you want to check it out and get 20% off this October, use the links in the description. Just a quick note on the spec that I've been sent to review, because it's not really representative of the base model M5 MacBook Pro I'm talking about in this video. This one has 32 gigabytes of unified memory, 4 terabyte SSD, the nano texture display, which I'll talk about in a moment, and a 70 watt power adapter was chucked in for good measure. That would have cost me, if I'd bought it myself, £3,408, so a lot of money. So this isn't the one that I'm talking about, but it does represent the spec'd up version if you decide to spend a lot of money on your base model MacBook Pro. However, versus the Intel MacBook Pro, this is where the numbers are fairly bonkers. Up to 86 times faster artificial intelligence performance, which isn't surprising given where we are with AI these days, but that's a big number. Up to 30 times faster GPU performance with ray tracing, as mentioned before, and up to 5.5 times faster CPU performance, which is a lot less of a number compared to the other two, but it's still a lot in computing terms. These are much faster laptops compared to the Intel variant. They also have higher spec options in most cases, so this goes up to 4 terabytes and 32 gig of unified memory. You may find that your particularly old Intel machine may not have had those particular options. It may not even have had SSD storage as an upgrade, which, you know, that's a very old Intel MacBook, but they're still out there, I know, and being used. However, one of the biggest upgrades, guys, is the battery life. And if you are still using and battling away with your Intel MacBook Pro that you do not want to give up, but it's constantly connected to a power source because the battery lasts 20 minutes, this will be a revelation. One of the biggest differences between the Intel and the M1 generation, all those years ago in 2020, was just how good the battery life was. The Apple Silicon generation is insane with battery life. These laptops go on for, not forever, but they go on for a long time, particularly if you go for the 16-inch version. But we are talking about this 14-inch version at the moment. The display, yes, you get the notch. It doesn't matter. It makes no difference to anything whatsoever, although you can lose your... It always makes me laugh. The mouse pointer can disappear behind the notch, but that doesn't matter. The most important thing is you get this beautiful display. It's not an OLED display, but that doesn't matter either. It's just this wonderful high refresh rate, 120 hertz. That's the other thing with this MacBook Pro. Even though it's the entry-level version, it has the same display technology as the more expensive one. And compared to the Intel generation, brighter, faster, richer colors, and you get this nano texture option, which I've never this is my first experience of the nano texture display on the MacBook Pro. And as you can see, I've got a huge key light here, a massive light illuminating me. You can barely see it. It really does a wonderful job of getting rid of reflections, and it gives it a more matte appearance, which I know isn't to everyone's taste, but I love this. I think if I ever buy a MacBook Pro again, I think I'll get the nano texture option because it just looks lovely. So display, battery life, all those performance upgrades. It might even be that you can't upgrade to macOS 26 on your Intel MacBook Pro. So that's another thing that you'd get if you go for one of these, along with Apple Intelligence, which, happy days. Right, let's talk about the M1 generation. Now, as you might suspect, the jump from the M1 to the M5 isn't as big as Intel to M5, but it's still fairly significant. The biggest difference is the fact that the M5 MacBook Pro comes with at least 16 gig of unified memory. The 8 gig thing has gone, it's been put to pasture. If you bought the MacBook Pro in the M1 days and it had 8 gig of unified memory, you must be struggling now. I fought its corner for as long as I could, but it became very difficult to justify on Apple's behalf. And fairly recently, they put 16 gig down as the base level unified memory. 8 gig has gone, so just that alone, coming from an 8 gig M1 MacBook Pro to a 16 gig M5 MacBook Pro is a big deal. You'll also get 6 times faster AI performance, obviously, a 6.8 times faster GPU with ray tracing, and twice as fast CPU performance, which isn't to be sniffed at. Those are big upgrades. And again, higher spec options. I don't think you could get a 4 terabyte M1 MacBook Pro. As in the base model, I'm fairly sure that was the case. You definitely couldn't get 32 gig of unified memory. So that's a big change. Yes, it does cost more, but it's an option if you need to go down that route. And again, the nano texture display, the 120 hertz ProMotion refresh rate thing, which you don't see that often, to be completely honest, but it's there. And some people do spot it and tell me off for saying that you can't spot it all the time. But it's there. there. It's a much, much better display. And, well, that's it, actually, in terms of the M1 MacBook Pro. But I think that is a compelling upgrade. Also, oh, guys, you're missing out. The one thing that I used to dislike about the M1 and the M2 generation MacBook Pro was that it was unfairly hampered. So the chip, fine. The memory, I could just about justify. What I couldn't justify was the lack of ports and the display discrepancy with the more expensive versions. Now, the display thing we've talked about. What we haven't talked about is the port situation. So, yes, it's thicker. I think it's thicker than the M1 MacBook Pro, but that doesn't matter. The reason it's thicker is because it's got better thermal cooling and stuff going on inside, but also because we have more ports. So you have more Thunderbolt ports. You have 1, 2, 3, you have the headphone jack, obviously. You have, it's back, guys. You have MagSafe, that returns, and, unbelievably, an SD card slot and a HDMI port. That alone could be enough justification to upgrade to the M5 version. I think when you chuck in everything else, you must be on the Apple website now spending money. It's your money, obviously, but it's a big upgrade. However, this laptop isn't for everyone, and there's two crowds that I want to address very quickly. Firstly, if you've bought the M4 MacBook Pro and you're outside of the return window, so if you bought it, let's say 2 months ago, and then this has come out and you're now thinking, oh no, don't worry, it doesn't matter. I know there are these upgrades, those performance increases that I talked about earlier, but what you don't know can't hurt you or won't hurt you. If you haven't experienced the M5, and to be honest, even those upgrades, you'd really have to be pushing this to notice them. And the design is the same. Nothing else has changed. You've still got a lovely MacBook Pro. Do not worry about that. Equally, if you bought the M4 or even the M3 MacBook Air fairly recently, don't worry. You've bought the right laptop. In fact, if you've bought specifically the 13-inch M4 MacBook Air, you've bought the best laptop that Apple makes. You only need this if you need the increased performance and the ports and all that stuff. If you don't need that, then you bought the MacBook Air for a reason. Don't think that you've got a lesser machine because this has come out. You haven't. If you want the best MacBook Pro going, and by that I don't mean the most powerful and all that sort of stuff. I just mean the best bang for buck for most people, this remains king. But now, guys, it's over to you. I want to hear from you if you're an M1 MacBook Pro owner or an Intel MacBook Pro owner. What is it that's making you hold on to that laptop? Get involved down below, and equally, are you tempted by this? Let's have a really good natured chat down there, and if you haven't hit subscribe yet, you know what to do.